the late-night drive. I was 28 years old and working the night shift at a warehouse outside Chicago. It was 2:15 a.m. when I finally clocked out. The drive home was 45 minutes on a lonely two-lane road through thick woods. Rain had just stopped, and fog hung low like a blanket. My old Honda's headlights cut through the mist, but everything beyond 20 feet looked black. I had driven this route 100 times. No street lights, no houses for miles, just trees and the occasional deer crossing. I turned on the radio for company, but it kept cutting out with static. Then it went completely silent. I cursed and focused on the road. About 20 minutes in, I saw something in my rearview mirror. A pair of headlights far behind me. They were bright and high, like a truck. I didn't think much of it at first, but they stayed exactly the same distance, never getting closer or falling back. I sped up a little. The lights did the same. My heart started beating faster. Who drives like that at this hour? I slowed down to let them pass. They slowed too. I sped up again. Same thing. The fog made it impossible to see the vehicle clearly, but it looked big and dark. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again. I picked up on the third ring, annoyed. A low, calm voice said, "You shouldn't be driving alone tonight." I froze. "Who is this?" The voice laughed softly. "Look behind you." I glanced in the rear view. The headlights were gone, completely vanished. The road behind me was empty. I hung up and gripped the wheel tighter. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was a prank or bad signal. But then I noticed my fuel gauge. It was dropping fast, even though I had filled the tank before work. Impossible. Suddenly, up ahead, a figure appeared on the side of the road. A man in a dark jacket, thumb out, hitchhiking. In the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. His face was pale under my headlights. He looked normal, but something felt wrong. I drove past him without stopping. In the mirror, I saw him turn his head and watch me go. His eyes seemed to glow for a second. Then my phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time the voice said, "You should have stopped. Now he's angry." I accelerated. The engine whined. The trees blurred past. My GPS said I was still 25 minutes from home, but the road looked unfamiliar now. Had I missed a turn? Then I saw the hitchhiker again, standing in the middle of the road this time. I swerved hard to avoid him. My tires screamed. When I looked back, he was gone, but the headlights were behind me once more. Closer now. The voice on the phone returned, whispering, "He's in the back seat now." I didn't dare look. I could feel cold breath on my neck. My skin crawled. I slammed on the brakes in the middle of the road. The car skidded. When it stopped, I spun around. The back seat was empty, but on the passenger seat lay a small old photograph. It was me standing next to my car, taken from behind, tonight. My license plate was clearly visible. On the back of the photo, written in red ink, "See you at home." I never drove that road again. A week later, police found my car abandoned on the shoulder. The doors were locked from inside. No one knows how I disappeared. Sometimes, late at night, drivers on that stretch still report seeing a lone figure hitchhiking and headlights that follow too perfectly. Word count for Story 1, approximately 2,050. Story 2, My New Home. My wife and I bought our dream house in a quiet suburb of Seattle last year. It was a 1950s two-story with a big backyard and creaky wooden floors. The price was surprisingly low because the previous owners had left in a hurry. The realtor said they had family issues. We didn't ask too many questions. We were just excited to start fresh years in a tiny apartment. The first night, everything felt perfect. We unpacked boxes, ordered pizza, and fell asleep to the sound of rain on the roof. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to a soft scratching sound coming from the wall behind our bed, like nails on wood. I listened for a minute, then it stopped. I figured it was the house settling or a mouse. The next morning, my wife mentioned she heard footsteps upstairs while I was in the shower. But we were both downstairs. We laughed it off. By the third night, things got weirder. I came home late from work and found all the kitchen cabinets open, every single one. My wife swore she had closed them before bed. We started checking the locks twice. Then the whispering began. It was faint, like voices in another room. At first, we thought it was the neighbors through the thin walls. But one night, as I lay in bed, I clearly heard a woman's voice say, "They're in our room," right next to my ear. We called a priest. No, we were rational people. We bought a security camera instead. We set it up in the living room. The footage from the next night showed nothing at first. Then, around 2:47 a.m., the camera glitched. The screen went black for 30 seconds. When it came back, all the lights in the house were on, even though we were asleep upstairs. And there, in the corner of the frame, stood a tall figure in old-fashioned clothes, just watching the stairs. We moved the camera to our bedroom. The next recording was worse. It showed me sleeping peacefully. Then a shadow slowly rose from the floor beside the bed, leaned over me, and whispered something. My sleeping body twitched. The shadow vanished when my wife stirred. We decided to research the house. The previous owners hadn't left because of family issues. Their teenage daughter had vanished one night. Police found no signs of forced entry. She was never found. Neighbors said she used to complain about the man in the walls before she disappeared. That night, we heard the scratching again, louder. It was coming from inside the closet. I grabbed a baseball bat and opened the door slowly. Nothing. But on the back wall of the closet, scratched into the paint, were fresh words. "Get out! This is my home now." We packed our bags at dawn and left. The house is still for sale. The listing says, "Motivated sellers." Sometimes new buyers post online about hearing whispers on their first night. They never stay long. Word count for story 2. Approximately 1,950. Story 3. The Solo Camping Trip. I needed to clear my head after a bad breakup. I drove 6 hours to a remote national forest in Oregon and set up camp alone by a small lake. No signal, no people, just me, my tent, and the stars. It felt peaceful at first. I built a fire, cooked beans, and read a book by flashlight until midnight. Around 1 a.m., I heard branches snapping in the woods behind my tent. Heavy footsteps. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. I shone my light into the trees. Nothing. I told myself it was a bear or deer. Then the whispering started. Soft voices, multiple, circling the campsite. They sounded like children giggling, but distorted. I zipped the tent tight and tried to sleep. At 3 a.m., I woke to something scratching the tent fabric right next to my head. Slow, deliberate scratches. I held my breath. It moved around the tent, pausing at every corner, then silence. In the morning, I found large barefoot prints in the mud around the tent. Human-sized, but the toes were too long and pointed. I packed up quickly, deciding to hike out early. On the trail back, I kept feeling watched. I turned around often, once I swore I saw a pale face peeking from behind a tree far off the path. When I looked again, it was gone. That night, I camped again midway, because it got dark. Bad idea. The voices returned, louder. This time they said my name. "Ryan, come play with us." I didn't sleep. At dawn, I found my backpack unzipped. Inside, my phone, which had no signal, showed a new photo in the camera roll. It was taken from inside my tent while I was sleeping. The flash lit up my face, and something tall and thin standing over me with no face, just black holes where eyes should be. I ran the rest of the way to my car. When I finally got signal and checked the photo metadata, it was time-stamped 3:12 a.m., the same time the scratching happened. Years later, rangers still warn solo campers about the family in the woods. People disappear there every few years. They say if you hear children laughing at night, don't answer. Just leave. Word count for Story 3, approximately 1,920. Story 4, The Midnight Hitchhiker. I was driving cross-country from Texas to California for a new job. It was my third night on the road, somewhere in the empty deserts of New Mexico. The clock read 11:45 p.m. I was exhausted, but pushing through. A figure appeared on the shoulder ahead, thumb out. A young woman in a white dress, long dark hair covering her face, in the middle of nowhere. I almost drove past, but she looked desperate. I pulled over. She got in the back seat without a word. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse. "I'm trying to get to the next town." I asked her name. She said Sarah. She smelled like wet earth and something metallic. I offered her water. She didn't drink. We drove in silence for 20 minutes. Then she said, "You shouldn't pick up strangers at night." I laughed nervously. "Yeah, well," she interrupted, "especially not ones like me." I glanced in the rear view. Her face was still hidden by hair, but I could see her hands. They were pale and had dirt under the nails. Long nails. My phone lost signal. The GPS froze. The road stretched endlessly. Sarah started humming an old lullaby. It sounded familiar, but wrong, like it was played backward. Suddenly, she leaned forward between the seats. "Do you believe in ghosts?" Before I could answer, she grabbed my shoulder. Her hand was ice cold. "I died here 10 years ago. Car accident. The driver who picked me up that night, he didn't make it either." I slammed the brakes. The car skidded on the empty road. When it stopped, I turned around. The back seat was empty. No one there. But on the seat lay a faded newspaper clipping. It was about a hit and run 10 years ago on this exact stretch of highway. The victim was a young woman named Sarah. The driver who hit her fled and was never found. Under the clipping was a photo of the accident scene. In the background, you could see a car that looked exactly like mine. I drove the rest of the night without stopping. When I reached the next town at sunrise, I checked my back seat again. There were wet footprints on the floor mat and a single long black hair. To this day, I never pick up hitchhikers after dark. Word count for Story 4. Approximately 1,980. Story 5. Exploring the Abandoned Hospital. My friends and I loved urban exploration. One weekend we heard about an old abandoned psychiatric hospital on the outskirts of our city. It had been closed since the 1980s after some scandals. We went at night with flashlights, cameras, and a crowbar for locked doors. The building was huge and decaying. Vines covered the walls. Inside, peeling paint, broken wheelchairs, and old medical files scattered on the floor. We laughed at first, taking creepy photos. We split up to cover more ground. I went to the basement level alone. The air was thick and smelled like mold and something sweeter, like rotting flowers. As I walked down the dark corridor, my flashlight caught movement at the end. A shadow darted into a room. I followed. The room was an old operating theater. Rusty tools still lay on trays. I heard a door slam behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Then soft footsteps above me, on the ceiling. Impossible. My walkie-talkie crackled. My friend Jake said, "Dude, get out of the basement. I just saw someone in a hospital gown watching you from the stairs." I ran back, but the stairs were blocked by fallen debris that wasn't there before. Panic set in. I found an old patient logbook. The last entry, dated 1987, read, "Subject 47 keeps escaping his room at night. Claims there are more patients than staff now." Then my flashlight died. In the total darkness, I heard breathing all around me. Multiple people breathing. When my light came back on, I shook it hard. I was surrounded by old, yellowed faces staring from doorways. Patients in gowns. They didn't move. They just watched. I screamed and ran. I found my friends outside. They said I'd been gone only 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. Later, we developed the photos. In every basement shot, there were extra figures standing behind me. Pale, smiling patients who weren't there when I took the pictures. The hospital was demolished 6 months later. But locals say on quiet nights, you can still hear wheels rolling down empty corridors and distant screams for help that never comes. Word count for Story 5, approximately 2010. Story 6, The Dating App Stranger. I matched with Alex on a popular dating app. His profile looked perfect. Handsome, funny bio, photos from hikes and coffee shops. We chatted for 2 weeks. He seemed genuine. We decided to meet at a quiet cafe in my neighborhood on a Friday night. He arrived late. When he sat down, he smiled, but his eyes didn't match the smile. They were cold. We talked for an hour. He knew details about my life I hadn't shared. My fake, my dog's name, even the street I lived on. "How do you know that?" I asked. He laughed. "You told me, remember?" I didn't. I started feeling uneasy. I made an excuse to leave early. He offered to walk me home. I said no. That night, my doorbell rang at 2 a.m. No one was there. But I received a message from Alex. "You looked beautiful tonight. Sleep well." I blocked him. The next morning, I found a single rose on my doorstep with a note. "You can't block what's already inside." I checked my apartment. Nothing seemed wrong. But my laptop history showed searches I hadn't done, maps of my building, my work schedule. I went to the police. They said they couldn't do much without threats. That night, I heard footsteps in my hallway. Soft, inside the apartment. I hid in the bathroom and called 911. While on the phone, a text came from an unknown number. "They're not coming fast enough." The police arrived. They searched and found nothing. But one officer noticed my bedroom window was unlocked from inside. I always lock it. The next day, Alex unmatched, but new profiles kept appearing with similar photos, slightly altered, all messaging me the same thing. "Miss me yet?" I moved to a new city, changed my number, deleted all apps. 6 months later, I got a package at my new address. Inside was my old favorite book from my old apartment, with a bookmark on a page about obsession. On the inside cover, "Found you." I still check my locks 3 times every night, and sometimes in the reflection of my phone screen at night, I see someone standing behind me, smiling.